Hey everyone, I'm Josh Apter, founder of Manhattan Edit Workshop. I want to welcome you to Sight, Sound, and Story Live, making it work from editor to director. In filmmaking, obviously, the relationship between the editor and director is key to successful storytelling. And tonight, we're going to join director Carey Williams and editor Lam Nguyen as they discuss their work on a successful Sundance short turned award-winning film called Emergency. It's currently streaming on Amazon Prime. And tonight, they're going to talk about everything from their creative approach to editing scenes, the collaborative relationship between director and editor, and the challenges of balancing the tension and humor within their film. It's going to be a really exciting talk tonight. So moderating is our old friend Gordon Burkell, founder of AOTG and co-founder of Filmmaker U, who's also co-producing tonight's event. And thanks, as always, to our great sponsors, OWC, AJA, ACE, ACE, and Filmmaker U. And, of course, to Jason Banky and Janet Dalton at Manhattan Edit Workshop, who make all of this look all too easy. If there are any technical problems, you'll know about it. Usually, if I mention something, there aren't any. So tonight's, we got a good omen going into tonight. But if anything happens, stand by. We'll be right back. So sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U, and this is a Sight, Sound, and Story live event. We're going to be sitting down with director Carey Williams and editor Lam Nguyen to talk about the film Emergency. Okay, so Carey, I have a question to start with for you. Now, when I watched the short film, it focuses on the Goldilocks and the Three Bears discovery moment. And then the feature extrapolates on that and sort of explores the whole night for them and what goes down. So I'm wondering, when you were making that transition from short to feature, what did you change in the characters, or what did you add to the characters that you weren't able to in the short?
Well, I was really interested in really fleshing them out, basically. I mean, we had 11 minutes in a short to really sort of make an impact, and it was more about a situation. But in an hour and a half to 2 hours, we have a chance to get to know who they are. So, one thing I was really interested in is finding out, about Sean's home life and Kunle's home life. And we get to find out where Goldilocks came from, like how did she end up there? All those kind of things that, in fleshing out the story, you have time to do. And I think enriches the story, because the more we know the guys and their history and their friendship dynamic, the more we care about them. And then also an understanding of how Goldilocks came to be there was, I think, really important to, expanding out the story of the night. And then therein lies our sort of antagonistic force in that there's a person who just basically neglected her to cause her to even be there. So yeah, it was just really fleshing out. It wasn't so much changing them, but just kind of like saying, okay, who are these people? What's their world? What's their background? And let's infuse as much of that into each of them.
Well, it's interesting because I got more of a punch with Kunle's, loss of innocence at the end in the feature because of all that buildup, right? Like, because of everything we've watched him go through.
Yeah.
And it was just so powerful. Now, you edited the short, if I'm not mistaken.
I did. We had an editor before, and that editor was busy on a documentary. So at some point I ended up finishing the film and re-edited the film, which, I like working with an editor now. I used to edit for many years.
Yeah.
And I used to always say, I'm not going to work with any other editors unless they're better than me. And so for a long time, I was like, I'll just do it myself. And then, the more I started working with other editors, I've found the great joy in it, and also the advantage of it in having that other person outside of your mind to really challenge you and stuff. So I edited that film. I edited that short like after there was a cut put together, and just kind of brought it home.
Well, I was going to ask, because I had read up that you have editing experience. So how did you and Lam meet? How did you guys sort of get on the same page for the feature?
Yeah, Lam and I met. Lam, I went to. I was gonna direct a screenlight film for this company, and I don't know if you know what Screen Life is, but it's like the like searching, that film searching, like
Okay, yeah.
the whole film is told through a device, either a laptop. In this case, it was going to be mobile phones. And Lam was basically brought to me as someone who they had a relationship with that knew how to do that kind of stuff, because I had no idea how to do that kind of thing. And yeah, that's how we met. It was just like, this is an editor that we have for you. Talk about how you can make this thing. And we ended up, you know, starting a great friendship from there. Like, we're very different people, which I like, because it's a different perspective that Lam brings to the work that I do, you know, outside of my mind. He's a very nice guy. And I don't know if I'm the nicest guy all the time. And it's like that balance is great. But also just like, you know, he has a really good sense of the heart of things too. So it ended up being a really good relationship. So we basically, we kind of found each other through this project and were put together.
Okay. So Lam, when you got the script for Emergency, like what was your first thing to do? Did you make notes? Did you call Carey to talk to him about it? Like, how did you sort of tackle the story when you?
Yeah, when I read a script, my first thing is just to read it through with no like looking for something, anything there. So I read it through just once, first time, and then I called Carey immediately right away. I said, hey man, just read the script, give me a call when you can. And I was just floored by the script. Katie Double, I wrote an amazing script, and I told Carey, I don't know if you remember, Carey, I was like, man, one of the highlights of this story, because it got me emotional on the page, was that lab scene when Kunle, you know, and Sean.
Which part?
At the end.
Like,
oh yeah,
okay, because my wife literally audibly went, "Ah!" as we were watching it, and when you guys cut to the shot of him lying against the door. It worked perfectly.
It was more, it was that scene where, when they finally embrace, when Sean, you know, gives them the comfort, like, hey, I'm here for you too. And so that really resonated on the page. And I was like, dude, that's not the highlight of my scene. And Carey was like, dude, that's it. That's North Star. And we kind of like were aligned right away with what the story is about, you know, which is really this friendship, this love relationship that these two guys have, on top of all the social topics that it touches on, but it's more about the story with these two guys. So I called him and we just talked about it right away, and then I read it again after that, and the second read was just as better as the first. So,
well, and you talked about it being emotional or getting you emotional. So when you're approaching scenes, do you approach it from like a mood or an emotion, or do you go based off the script first and then try to get the mood or emotion in?
When we go into production and dailies, I don't reference the script. I would reference if I'm lost on something, or to make sure I got the points right. But more, I'm an emotional editor, so I really edit with my emotions. And with this story especially, I do my best to be in our characters' shoes, because the goal is to have the audience feel what our characters are feeling instead of just watching them. So I dive into the dailies fresh with no objective and just try to feel my emotions with them. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Now, Carey, was that similar how you like to approach editing, or is it different for you?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I want to say something. I want to jump in. Like, he's an emotional editor, but this dude has an incredible gift of editing on like the coolest little like sound effect things that happen naturally, and making cuts to that shit that really speaks to me. It's nothing about emotion. It's very much like just the intuitive rhythm that it's like the editor nerd in me like geeks on, that many people may not even see. But yeah, I wanted to just throw that out there, like, you know, I want to gas Lam up on that level. He really does that really well, but in addition to the emotional editing. But for me, with editing, I spent a lot of time working on reality TV shows. So my emotion was just pain of having to do that. But you know, as far as approaching the work, I mean, yeah, I wanna approach the scenes from an emotional level, because that's really what it's about, right? It's like, you know, is this scene being honest to what we're trying to say or whatever? And like, there's been a lot of times when you're like, well, the composition might be better in this, or the move might be better on this, but the, you know, the emotion that's coming through from the actors was better in that. You know what you got to choose, you know? It's like, you got to choose the one that's going to be, because, you know, we might see like, oh, it's such a smooth move or something, but an audience member, they just want to be like really engrossed in the story. So I'm that same way too. And, you know, transitioning to just directing, I look for that same thing. And Lam is that guy, you know, he'll go for the, you know, bobbly take, if it's not crazy, you know, if it's not like something we can't use, to go for the emotion over the smoothness. And that's really it. So I'm the same way too. And I think that might be why we work really well together, is because we're both on that same level.
Right. So speaking of emotion, I want to throw to our first clip.
Yeah.
In this clip, we're going based on the way Amazon sent it to me, which is, this is the ending. So spoiler alerts for anyone who's seen hasn't seen the film.
The film, if they're watching this.
They should be watching.
Is Carlos here?
Hey, Carlos! Wait. Just hold on a second. Now, Los, come here now. All right. Wait.
Emma, this is Kunle and Carlos. They saved your lives. So we don't want to intrude. We just had something we wanted to say. You're going first.
Thank you for everything, getting me to the hospital, and sorry for apparently breaking in and throwing up everywhere. So embarrassing.
Yeah, I literally live 2 doors down, so I think she thought this was my house.
That's what we think. I thought, we don't really know because I don't remember anything.
But yeah, we can help pay for any rugs that need to be cleaned, or
It's cool.
or
It's hardwood floors.
right, or the car, because I know
It's
that.
fine. We're just happy that you're better.
Emma, why don't you go ahead and just talk to them for a second?
Yeah.
Cool. Great. I had something I wanted to say. Just 1 second. Okay. Kunle, Carlos, I want to extend my deepest apologies for what transpired the other night. I'm working on myself and what I put out into the world, and I'll just leave this in your mailbox then.
So I guess, how did you guys approach the scene once you had all the footage, you're ready to go? How did you approach editing the scene? So the scene starts basically with the apology and goes all the way to the end shot.
Oh man, we had, do you want to go first, Carey, or?
Oh, dude, you're the editor, man. I'm here. I'll jump in right when I need to.
We had so many versions of this ending, like so many from the first draft. We were like, okay, this is the ending we need to work on. And I think, a little tidbit, the original ending, the apology scene was longer. It was full all the way through, where, and then we kept tinkling with, well, it was two, it's in a way, it's two endings. We got the apology, then we have PTSD. So the Kunle PTSD was, we had like slight variations of it, but generally it stayed the same. But the apology was the key, and I think as we got through the drafts and we did test screenings and stuff, the movie felt longer to end. It just kept dragging. How do we shorten this out and still make it impactful? And I think, I don't know who came up with the idea of, because with Kunle shutting the door on her,
yeah,
that wasn't in the script. That wasn't even thought of at all. It was towards the last minute of our final picture lock situation.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah, it just came. Carey and I just kept Carey kept throwing like these ideas out, and I would bounce back like, let's try this, let's try that, and then I think one day Carey's like, you know what do you think of him shutting the door on her? Do we have footage? Can we make that work where it just seems natural? And just through the edit, we just had to like scrape the barrel and found all these shots and moments to make it work, where Kunle, the goal is to get Kunle's power back, or his control back in a way with the situation, but also do it, in a subtle way where it's not like forced. But and add some comedy a little bit in the end with her kind of talking me out the door. So yeah, it was just through a lot of versions and test screenings that kind of kept asking us, how do we shorten this ending? Because it would keep dragging on.
I totally thought that was scripted, the door shut. So that worked. Because like I was sitting there, I was like, oh, that's a huge commentary, like the Black community has to allow people to speak, and he's stepping up and he's saying, no, man, I'm just gonna take it back. And I was like, wow, that worked great.
That was one of the best things that we discovered in the edit, I feel, was that moment. And it to me was what we were facing was this feeling that Kunle had lost. He'd been through so much, and then he had to also sit there and listen to this apology that was, maybe not the most earnest, wasn't the most from the heart. It was scripted, probably not written by her, probably written by Alice or whatever. You know? And it was a way to give him his agency back, and have that moment of like a win for him, and like saying like, I'm not going to take this and I'm not going to deal with this anymore. But then we toyed with the idea of like ending the film there, right? Like Kunle takes his agency back, and like he's gonna go on. And what we really needed to really face was the honesty of, he's gonna be forever changed by that moment, and needed to like sort of level it back out and say, yeah, he has this moment, but he still has this PTSD. But that last look from him was a look of resilience, right? It's like, it's pain, but it's also resilience mixed in. And I think that speaks to where he's going to be going forward. So I think it felt, for us, it was more honest ending, to take it that next step than to just end on like that, like, yeah, he closed the door in her face. That's great. We love that he had that, but there's more. And then, there were other things that were scripted that happened, that were conversations between him and Sean after that moment that we had to play around with. So that ending, we took our time to get that right, because it's like we owed it to Sean and Kunle, especially Kunle, to have that story end in the most satisfying but also honest way possible. And we did take in the test screenings and what people were responding to. We knew that some people were going to be bothered by what he would do with like closing the door, like, why don't you just hear her out, like all this stuff. But, and that's fair, that's valid. But this was Kunle's journey, and I think we felt for the people that we love in this story that have had this thrust upon them in this evening, that's what needed to happen. So it's okay if everybody didn't love that part, but we thought that like the people who were on the journey with them would love it. So that's what we needed to do. And yeah, it was a lot of trial and error. And we're happy with where we landed.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I thought that last shot where you're pushing in while they're playing Tetris reminded me a lot of 400 Blows at the end, where it's basically pushes in and freezes on him. And I was just like sitting there, I was like, oh yeah, he's lost his innocence, because he was the one who's like, oh, we could just call the police at the start.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was intentional, but it was great.
Thank you. I have to say, like that end like little party thing was for me as a director was so stressful, because I didn't get it like I wanted. Like I didn't shoot it the way I wanted. Like I literally had like an hour to do so much. And we had like a thunderstorm that day, or like tornadoes in Atlanta. Like, the rule is like, if there's a thunderclap, you have to like you have to add 30 more minutes to however long you've waited to shoot, right? Yeah. So it ended up being like 3 hours we lost. And so by the time I could actually shoot, it was like maybe an hour to get all this stuff. And it was just, the coverage was like, but I have to give it to Lam to the way he put it together, it made it work, because I was like, dude, here you go. That's what I got for you, man. I hope you can make this work. And he did, so yeah. So I'm glad that ending worked, because I was worried about that last bit too.
Yeah, no, it was fantastic. How did you guys find a balance for Kunle's innocence? Because essentially, like, he has to be innocent and slowly losing this throughout the movie. And there's just this nice sort of build throughout. So how did you approach that, Lam, when you were structuring the film?
I think methodically going through each scene I would ask the question, okay, whose perspective are we on in this scene? What's the goal? If it's Sean's perspective, I lean on that, but or on Kunle's perspective, or even Carlos. But if it starts with one person's perspective, I try to, we try to find moments in that scene to balance it out. Like Carlos will jump in and say something, or Kunle will bounce back and fight back with his motive. So with Kunle, I mean, honestly, I didn't really think about it as we were putting the edit together. I think it just, the scenes, it's more like taking a scene by scene and just making sure each scene worked emotionally and with the character decision. And then it just kind of like, I think that's just kudos to Katie's script, because it was written that way. So we kind of followed that kind of order. So that balance it was actually on the page, it was there. And I think it just fortunately worked out with the filming and the edit as we worked through each scene. But yeah, I just focused on, and especially if the scene starts off dramatic, we try to end it off with some levity, because to release that tension and gets the audience to relax and move forward again. And vice versa, if it starts with something funny, let's pull the drama back. Hey guys, let's get back to reality. And then, so that kind of helps with the balance throughout with their characters.
Well, I want to add to that too. Something that I tried to do, and then I worked with Lam with in the edit for that balance of like the Kunle's journey and losing his innocence, was some of these moments where you had slow-mo moments. And I did it with Sean and I did it with Kunle. So there's, Sean has this moment, a slow-mo push in on him, like looking at the girl on the ground, like you see that the anxiety and the everything, the fear building in him and thinking about it. And then with Kunle, like, and Sean and Carlos in the car, once they learn that this girl is, in high school and everything, you have these slow-mo moments where you're with everyone in their heads as they're driving into the woods. Those are moments that were built into this this film that weren't in the script, that we were putting in to get you into their perspective, you know. And the balance with the edit that you know, we found was just like learning how long to hold those moments to give you that does not lose the urgency, which was our keyword during making this fucking edit, was the
Emergency's urgency.
yeah. But how long to hold those moments within like keeping the tension and the urgency of what they do. And that's where, you know, Lam was really great about, like, just funny, just the right moment. Cause that's so much with comedy, right? Is like, you don't want to overstay your welcome too much with like whatever the joke is or whatever the look is or whatever that, you know, you're doing that comedic timing. And we had to do the same thing with these, you know, moments of showing their loss of innocence and their, you know, their internal fear and anxiety building, just dropping that in there and then, you know, okay, get the point and move to the next thing. So it was tricky. We had to, you know, really sort of, you know, shade it just right, and Lam hit it out of the park, I think.
Now you mentioned this, so I want to show a clip too, which is the moment where they discover that she's a teenager.
Yo, people out here, man.
Nigga, was you like hiding in the bedroom? No. No.
What? What? No.
Okay, look. Oh shit, yeah, nice.
Guys? You guys?
Yo, what are you doing out of the van? Get back outside.
She was drinking this.
Oh shit, that is death punch.
Death punch? Well, why is it called death punch? Oh. Whoa, whoa, oh, God. Hey, Terrence. I'm sorry.
The hell is going on?
Okay, so we found this girl and we don't know who she is.
Actually, her name's Emma, and she just told me that she's in high school.
Shit! What the fuck? No! Here, oh God, okay.
So y'all found a passed out, possibly roofied white child in your house.
Got her even drunk, and you thought it'd be a good idea to bring her to my house? Sean, you know I'm on parole, and you lied to me. Calais, is your grandma even dying?
I'm sorry. We just tried to help her.
Give me my keys.
Yo,
Give them to me.
we gotta actually go to the hospital, man.
Not in my car, you don't.
Here, just take. Yo, hey, what you doing?
Look, we don't have time to argue, Sean. We gotta go now.
Come on, Carlos.
You can't go with them. Have you lost your damn mind? Something happens to that girl, they'll be fine. Even if they get caught, they'll be fine probably. You won't be. Ain't Conley Rich and his family fucking dentists or some shit?
Sean? Sean?
Let them handle it.
Wait, guys, it says she's somewhere here. Look.
Huh? Which house is it? I can't tell.
You know what? You two stay here. I'm gonna go check it out.
Excuse me. Can I help you? Are y'all lost?
No, we're good. We're good. Thank you. Have a good night.
Girl, there's a white boy out here with a sheet on.
I'm not driving. Put your seatbelt on. I'm putting my seatbelt. I'm putting my seatbelt on.
I need to hear it.
I need to hear it click. Wow,
Here we go.
fucking click.
Thank you. And now we're off.
It's definitely one of the most challenging scenes that we worked through. I mean, for me, it was very surgical. It had to be so surgical, and but also the challenge of jumping back and forth with Maddie's arrival and the boys in the apartment. And that one we had many versions of as well. And I think even with the producers and the test screenings, it's like, is it landing for them? Like you could tell it's not completely landing on the way, so something's off, you know. And we had a couple of versions before, like other versions that worked, but this one, I don't know how it came. We just kept working with it. We just kept tinkling with it. And then I think one day Carey was just like, you know what we should do? Just focus on one thing at a time. Let's get Maddie's arrival scene. Just focus on that, get that upright. And then the apartment, let's just focus on this moment with the girl puking. And let's just check every take, every angle. And I'm glad that, you know, I remember watching the dailies. I was like, please just give me this delayed pause with you guys. Like, because there were takes where like the guys would just react right away. And we had tried that version. It just doesn't work. Like you need that pause, that hesitation. And once we were able to find those moments with all those guys just pausing and thinking, like, that's it. That's the one that we pulled. So it's finding that delayed beat.
Well, and then you did this crazy pivot where Sean's brother basically is like, this is what's going down. You need to like stop helping them and get out of here. So like, how do you do that kind of shift tonally to like keep us as an audience still with you? But, you know, we've just been laughing, but we also have this serious moment at the same time.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where you give the audience enough time to laugh it off. And usually with comedy, and I watch a lot of comedy while I was editing this film just to study how they time things and do things. It's like, you give them a moment to laugh, but you don't want a long pause on longer than that, because then it's like, okay, what's going on next? It's laughing, and then for us it's like, let's just keep them on track with the drama. And so I think it's just one of those things where it's a feel, it's a timing thing. Like this feels just enough time. When the boys run out, when we see the boys run out of the apartment down the street, how long do we stay on that shot? And we just kind of feel it out, and just like shorter, just a little bit shorter, and then go back to the apartment scene. So it's just a feel.
For me, I would say that pivot is rooted in that scene was a lot bigger, and I kept saying, let's pull stuff out, and that ended up being, when we first come into that scene, the POV is Kunle's nervousness about being around real Black men in this situation. They're smoking, they're drinking. He's not in that situation. He's nervous. Like, we built it up on the drive over, and then when we come in, he's looking around like he's not. So it's rooted in his perspective of, and his fear and his uncomfortableness. So that scene with the guys messing with him was way bigger before.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, pull everything out and just focus on Kunle being uncomfortable. And it's still funny, but now we're like, I think the audience is rooted in like Kunle feeling what Kunle's feeling and his thing, and not like being like laughing at random stuff. So I think when we make that pivot after the little jokey moment, we're still, the audience is in that situation of like, this is really a real situation for these guys, because we started that whole scene rooted in an emotional place for Kunle. Now it's jumping to Sean, but Kunle and Sean are kind of one for us, right? As the audience, like they're you know, they're two guys that we love. They just have different points of view. But if we've done our job, those points of view are both valid. And so as audience members, we're like loving both of them. Like, there's half the people like, Sean's right, Kunle's right, whatever, but still we love them both because they have validity. So I think that's what allowed us to make that pivot back to like the serious, like, you can't go with them, like, because it all started from an emotional place. And it's not like we're just trying to make a jokey, funny scene here. No, this is really real. They're trying to figure out what to do to get back to their lives. So I think that's what made it work. And it is about like what Lam was saying of like, how long do you stay on, you know, letting people laugh? I personally, when I watch the movie now, I still think we stayed on the outside shot when they run out a beat too long. Like, it's one of those, dude, it's one of those things where it's like, we were thinking like, yo, hopefully people are laughing their ass off in this moment. So we want to give it enough time for that to like resolve, so that when we get back to the real stuff that, you know, Sean's brother is like getting at him about, people are back to the scene and they're not still laughing. You know, we didn't want to like miss anything for the next scene. But when we go back in and re-edit this one day, just
the director's cut, the extra long, all the footage that we've missed.
It's all digital streaming now. We could just do that cut and re-upload it. No one will know the difference.
Yeah, no one will notice.
But here's the thing, I laughed all the way through that. So like that, if you remove that, then I'll be laughing into Sean's moment. So it works at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
There you go.
Thank you. Glad to know that.
Sorry, Lam, what were you going to say?
I know. I said, yeah, like I remember when we watched the film with an audience. It was very satisfying to hear the audience like just roaring, like laughing out loud. Like, yes, it's working. You know, Carey and I will always like look at each other during that moment, like, yeah, we got that. And I think that's one of the great things that Carey brings as a director, was he simplifies things more, because the scene was a lot bigger. It had so much more going on. But I think, you know, we kept reminding ourselves, like, you know, Carey's like, this is a drama. This is a drama, not a full-on comedy. And I think that's what helps us as the audience. They're used to that kind of thematic situation already, that when we go back to drama, they're used to that. It's just the comedy is just there to help just relieve tension. So I think that was the key, is making sure it's still dramatic as a thing.
I do want to touch on one thing that Carey, that you said, because it's interesting that you were talking about how they're essentially one character, Sean and Kunle. And as I think about it, it's very interesting, because they are duality. You know, like one is I've got to follow the books, I've got to do everything right. The other one's like, no, just let go, have fun, which just seems to be something that everyone has a bit in them, right? So it's almost like we can connect more with both of them, because we both, you know, that they're essentially the angel and the devil on your shoulder, arguing over what to.
Yeah, dude. And they both want to be kind of the other person. You know, Sean loves how smart Kunle is, and like he's got all this stuff going for him. And Kunle wishes he could be as cool as Sean. So they're like, they fit together in that way. And, you know, they're kind of, you know, two sides of the same coin. So, you know, you should hopefully love and respect both of them and their points of view.
Now I want to jump to the third clip.
Pretty much what happened is we were at the party, and then Maddie couldn't find her sister.
All right. I'm giving you kids a warning. You're free to go.
Is she gonna be okay, officer?
Well, I can't make any promises, but probably yes. If somebody is unconscious, just call the pros next time, all right? Okay.
You all right, man?
Yeah, I just want to go. I just want to go and check my coaches. That's all. Just I think I can still save some of them.
Hey. It's okay if you're not okay.
Come on, man, I'm fine.
fine. Kunle, hey, Kunle, look. You're my hero, man. What you did, you were a fucking badass tonight. All right?
Yeah.
You were.
You know, I almost pissed on my fucking self.
I think I probably did a little. To the lab?
Yeah.
Lead the way.
Talked about the other scenes and you guys talked about removing a lot of stuff. Was that scene larger before, or did you guys keep it that tight and sort of focus just on his emotions in that moment?
Yeah, that scene was larger.
Yeah.
I think honestly, to be honest, I think every scene in the movie was bigger.
Yeah.
And I went through before the end, towards the end, and pulled out so much and just tightened it up. Partially a directive from up high to tighten it up, but also just hey, this isn't quite working. Simpler might be better sort of feel. But that scene actually had Alice and Raphael in the beginning.
Okay.
Out her trying to actually talk to Kunle before and then leaving, and then Carlos. And we took that out and just kept it about, between the guys, which was, I think it was a good idea because it just centered it more back towards their, trio.
Yeah.
It was longer. We shortened it, and the whole the permission to experience the PTSD. I want to speak to that. I almost went too far with it because I was kind of pushing Donald, our actor, to like get more emotional and actually cry in that moment. And it became really apparent that like if he did that, then it took away from that emotional breakdown he would have in the next scene.
Yeah.
So pulled back from that. But I wanted him to sort of, when the guy said, "Hey, you're my hero and it's okay if you're not okay," I wanted him to like start to let it down, but it was better for him to let it down in the next scene with Sean, who was more of the direct connection to that brotherhood that he had. But that was Carlos. It's beautiful that Carlos started that, as you pointed out, Carlos started that journey for him in that moment, and then Sean completed it.
Yeah, I think that's also a scene with the reverse montage.
Yeah.
We had a montage of the locations of the guys working throughout the night, and it's one of those things where, for me, to give the audience, because we just gone through this crazy ride, emotional ride, roller coaster, and it's just like to give the audience to just kind of take in the moment, and then this reverse montage, it's really like those locations are. It's like we call it reverse montage because the legendary tour.
Yeah.
That scene, that's what the night was supposed to happen, and it obviously didn't happen that way. So just kind of like it's like a summary of the film backwards of those locations, like what could have been came to this. So that's something that that montage, I was hoping that it would work, and I'm glad that Carey was digging it when I did the first assembly. And I didn't tell Carey, I was like, let me just put this transition together and see if it works. And yeah, I'm glad he liked it.
that was honestly one of the best moments of post for me when I saw that scene. And that was one of those moments when I was like, I knew I had the right editor. I knew Lam was the right person to do it because, like he said, I didn't ask him for that. It wasn't written in the script. And I think that was like in his editor cut. I don't even think this was like something like over the weekend. He's like, let me try this, and Monday show it to Carey. It was like his first thing, like my pass. And I was like, dude, that's brilliant. It really does let us go, fuck, you know, like,
yeah.
And he had to find all that stuff, you know. It wasn't, I didn't shoot that stuff because I'd never thought of it. And he went into all those scenes and did those moments and put it together like that. And that's beautiful. That's the kind of stuff that, like, I think as a director, I'm looking for in an editor who's like, hey, I'm an artist here and I know what this story is. And me as a person, I'm feeling I need a breath here. How do we create that with whatever's in this footage? And he did that. And so it was one of the like most fulfilling moments of the edit process that I had nothing to do with. You know, it's like, this is great.
I do have to say, there is one moment that made me laugh really hard. There's the nope moment where everyone nopes out, but there's also when the married couple comes out and they're like, they're selling drugs, and they like chase them off, and they're like, all right, we did it, and they like walk back, and there's the Black Lives Matter poster on there. So when you cut back to that, it was perfect. It perfectly summed it up for me. What would you say are some of the challenges of cutting something emotional like that, Lam, and trying to get the right feel for the audience?
In
the scene we were talking about before, the where he gets permission to go through his PTSD.
with that montage.
Yeah.
It was just because I was sitting there and I just felt like we needed this break. Like I said, like we just had this crazy rise of what can we do that's emotional. So I feel like every location that they had to pit stop on the way, they had a crazy experience. All the characters had a new experience or something. So I was like, okay, let's just get the audience to kind of reflect. It's like a reflection. And it's like a nice way to reflect this film that doesn't feel redundant, but that's emotionally connected. And I think as an audience, you've experienced it with these guys in this location. And it's just like, this is what those spots were. And what if those nights, for me, when I did this first time, I was like, it's a what if thing. Like, what if this didn't happen with this location here? It would just be quiet. Nothing would happen in those locations, but because it did. So it's just a what if, you know, that was kind of my question. I was like, what if it didn't happen? What would those scenes be like? Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Now I want to jump to the fourth clip we have, which is the very start in the classroom.
Don't do this. What's wrong? What's the matter? She liked you, dickhead. She's craving that BBC or small BC. I don't fucking know. I ain't seen your dick.
Okay, we are graduating in 2 months. And what am I gonna do? Just start something so we can break up? I don't want to do that. She's
you could just fuck me. Look, we only gonna be living 30 minutes away from here next year. Campus ain't gonna be that far. Just fuck. Just fuck. I don't wanna see you gone, but I know you. You bitch!
Whoa, not you.
No, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. No, fucking Victor gave away our passes.
Hey,
fucking dangleberry.
You called him a what?
A dangleberry.
Okay,
hang off your asshole because he ain't worth shit.
Calm down. Look, we'll figure it out. Come on, let's just go. It's not the end of the world. It's okay.
For you, it's not.
We're okay.
Hi, class. Sorry I'm late. Oh, goodness. Okay, so if you've done the reading, which you should have, you'd have noticed that there's a big old trigger warning next to the syllabus on today's class. And I know that we're inches away from spring break, but if you could just maintain your focus and respectability to the end of the day, I'd be most appreciative. Okay, so we're good to go?
Should take us to blackout.
So we've been talking about the power of language, and today we're going to be talking about hate speech. Now, before I go any further, I just feel like I need to restate the trigger warning. So are we good?
That's you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the infamous N-word. The word nigger has had a very long and terrible history. It occupies a unique space in the modern American vernacular. A word so taboo that it's clearly making a lot of you feel uncomfortable with me just saying it right here, right now, in a very isolated academic context. Now, my question is to you lot. What makes this word so powerful? Anybody? Yes.
I mean, because it's racist?
I think we could all agree it is racist, yes. But there are many racist offensive words. What makes nigger different? It originates from the Spanish
Is that shit even allowed?
which started out
It's on the syllabus. There was a trigger warning.
Trigger warning these nuts. That shit are not okay.
And then, of course, with an A at the end, we've got nigga.
Bro, she keep fucking saying it. Okay. She just said nigga 3 times.
Occupies a different space
Okay,
and time.
well, what do you want me to do
Somehow,
about it? Ask her. Inquire
it's
about
hard
it.
our
Ask her,
counterpart.
Kunle. I'm not gonna ask her.
And it
You
starts
don't want me
off
to
as
ask her. She can
neutral
ask this
term.
question.
She's British. Maybe she just doesn't know.
Give a fuck if she British, boy. Ask her why
So
is
what
she
happened?
teaching a class on some shit she don't know shit about.
I want to put you two on the spot or anything, but you must have something to say. Please, this is a safe space. What do you think it is that keeps this word so powerful?
Now, I have to ask, Carey, was it hard to find an actress willing to play the teacher and wasn't like, I don't want to be canceled in a year when someone looks back?
Yeah, Nadine was incredible. That was honestly, we didn't get her till like the last minute. There are a lot of people that were like, really great script, but yeah. So yeah, no, she came in and she was like, yeah, I'll do it. It's, you know, but kudos to her for being brave and doing that. And yeah, so it wasn't easy to find, you know, it wasn't like everyone was like, yeah, I want to say that. I want to say that over and over.
In different forms, in different ways.
Yeah.
Well, it's so what I found really interesting, like in editing, a lot of it is focus and like whose perspective are we taking this moment from? And in this scene, it's really interesting that you guys are, the focus is completely from, you know, Sean and Kunle's perspective for the scene. And then there's one little beat where she basically asks them their opinion and everyone turns around, right? How did you get the timing for that, Lam? Because again, it's another one of those moments, and maybe this goes back to the first part where Carey was talking about your ability to time things, but there's sort of this nice sort of switch or this sort of moment that happens where everyone just focuses on them all of a sudden.
I think that's kudos to Carey being well prepared. He's so prepared during these shoots, and we would be in talks about the shot list, like, hey, what do you think of this? So Carey came in prepared for that. I think with that moment, with the classroom turn, Carey shot that. It was already there in the dailies, and when I remember when I saw it, like, that's the moment right there. And so it wasn't as much of a surgical thing compared to the apartment scene. That moment was already there, so that worked. But I think the challenge of that scene was more before when the teacher was saying like the N-word and how it kind of keeps adding up and how in a way ridiculous it becomes, you know, like that was the challenging of how do we hit that right, where we're not making fun of it, but it's like funny in some ways. So it's a weird thing because like
you
can't laugh at it about it, but it's a funny moment because it's how ridiculous it is. So that was a challenge of making that resonate right, because then, you know, the biggest thing was, will the audience be turned off or be uncomfortable?
Well, and you go to all these great reaction shots of the students all sort of awkwardly sitting there at that moment, which works fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's centered from their perspective from the very beginning. So it's like it's all, the comedy is coming from their reaction to it, and the difference of sort of like Kunle being like, well, it is a syllabus, and Sean's like, what are you talking about? This is not okay. Like, there's humor in there, and then, you know, sprinkling in the reaction of the kids in the class because they're the general public audience, right? Like,
Yeah.
watching it like, yo, this is not okay, but it's still centered in their perspective. That was another scene that was a lot. It was bigger. We had a whole group of frat boys run through the classroom in that scene in the beginning, and again, another scene where it's like we cut it in half, you know.
Yeah.
Which is it ended up being better for it because it kept it grounded and rooted in their experience of sort of a reality.
Yeah. I have to say, thank you for cutting this down, because the amount of movies that are 2.5 to 3 hours long these days that shouldn't be, that I'm just like sitting there like, okay, come on. And whereas this, I was like, wow, it was tight, it was great, and it just worked.
Yeah.
Right?
Thanks. Yeah. It was, I think it's better for it. The first cut was what, 3 hours, Lam?
Yeah. It was 3 hours.
We had said there's no way we're gonna get this movie under 2 hours. Like we were adamant that there was no way, and we ended up getting it to 1:45.
Yeah, we did, without losing the heart of the story, which was great. I think in this opening with the classroom scene, before that we had this intro of the movie, you know, like boys walking around the campus and stuff. That was done. It wasn't like intentionally originally that way, you know. We had to start off in the classroom right off the bat. And I think that was one of the things that, you know, from the producers and higher ups, like, oh, this could turn off a lot of people right off the bat. How do we? The question is, like, we were just tinkling around, like, how do we ease into this where the audience feels comfortable when we get to the scene in the classroom? And so we had to, you know, mess with this stuff in the beginning, where it's a montage, get to know these boys. But yeah, if you remember that with the boys walking and Cooley talking about, you know, Sean's teasing him about a girl that crush Sean, and then another scene where they walk up to the lab, that was written for after the classroom scene.
Interesting.
Took that and moved it in the beginning and made it feel like its own thing for the intro to help. Was it permission to laugh? Give the audience permission to laugh and a feeling before we get to the classroom scene. Yeah,
that's really interesting. So when you did test with it, with that shift, was there any moment where some people got lost and you had to rejig it a bit more because we're coming in halfway through their sort of experience?
After the change.
Yeah, because we've shifted it to the start, but we're missing that moment.
I don't think we tested it again after that, did we, Lam?
No, we didn't. The test was with the classroom as the first thing, and then we just kind of changed it up, and then everyone felt better about it, and so we went with it.
That's one of those things that I still like. I feel like wish it would have started like the way it was, just subjectively on Kunle.
Yeah.
But I understand the reasoning for how, you know, we needed to do it, because it did that scene is triggering, you know, to folks if there's no like context of what this movie is, you know, if that there's no context that this movie is a comedy, and then you start throwing the N-word around in the classroom, it could be. But my point of view was, it's okay for people to be a little bit off balance coming into a movie. I like that, you know, but you know, there is something to be said for, hey, tell the audience what this movie is, and then like kind of smack them around a little bit, and then, you know, they'll be a little bit more go with it. So that's what we did, you know. I mean, and I think it works. It works for, you know, it's just a choice. It's not like right or wrong, you know.
Well, there's this sort of tension between the teacher, because she's kind of smirking as she's saying it, like, I'm getting away with something, and like there's like tension, especially when she calls on them to sort of speak up.
Yeah.
And it's like almost like a battle going on, like underneath the surface, which is really interesting.
Yeah. No, I like that you pick up on that, because that was definitely a discussion that we talked about, was like, she's very aware of these two Black guys in the back of the class, and she's poking at them a little bit. So that's a good you know, thing that you pick up on. I like it.
Yeah.
I will also feel like it's so interesting how like in the edit process, you find these different ways to put the movie together, because I was like, there's no way we can figure out how to put a scene before, but that's the power of editing, like, yes, you can. There's always gonna be something you can figure out to do. And, you have to kind of like put your head down and figure it out. There's something to be done. And I didn't think we'd be able to find something to put before that, but, after however many weeks of thinking about it, we did.
Yeah, totally.
Now I want to jump to the last clip we have, which is the police chase. Now, I do want to give a small warning to people watching in that you should really watch the movie, because the amount of buildup to the chasing, the clip that we have from Amazon is only 5 minutes long, but without that huge buildup, I feel like I rewatched it this morning with just the 5 minutes, and it just doesn't have the same tension as when I first watched it, because I have these relationships with everyone. So if you haven't seen the movie, go watch the movie, then come back and listen to this.
What do I do? Should I pull over?
Turn the flashers on.
Great. I don't know where anything is on this car. Right. Shit.
We're not hostages. We're not.
Oh, that doesn't look good.
Pull over.
Right. Man, come on. They really think that we kidnapped you guys. Fuck. Oh, shit. Stay alive. Come on.
Come on! Step out of the vehicle now! You have it till the count of 3!
Guys, we gotta get up.
1!
Go, Carlos! Yeah. What do I do? How do I open the door with my...
2!
Maddie, look at me. Just first, okay? Just first.
3! Hands up! I was just trying to help her.
Wait, just wait. My sister needs a doctor. Listen to me. Listen. My sister needs a doctor. Listen to me. My sister needs a doctor. My sister died.
You're doing it wrong.
Listen to me.
Oh.
My sister needs help! Use your fucking eyes! My sister's dying in that van! Stop arresting us and get her some help! Please, please, Emma!
We need a medic!
Get my sister's
You stay there.
Please, just let me see her! Just let me get to her, please! Emma! Emma! Fuck!
How did you go about building the tension in the scene? Because it is unbelievable.
It was a lot of stuff going on, and that's one of the challenges when I was putting that together. Was like, we have all these characters' perspectives to go through. You know, we have Carlos, Diego, like Carlos, Raphael, Kunle, Maddie, and Alice, and it's just really getting that balance right throughout the whole scene. And I think obviously we start off with some comedic relief with Kunle, you know, hot staying alive, and like what are you seeing? That sets it up. But yeah, once the police car shows up, and initially that seems also bigger. You know, we stripped it out some more. We had moments where we actually jumped inside the police car, and they're doing more like tracking the license plate, like, oh, this is, you know. But then we're like, no, we should be in these guys' shoes, you know, because we all have experienced getting pulled over and stuff. It's just a scary thing. And so it's like, let's just be in the car, be in the van. Once the lights show up, it's like, okay. For me, it's like, who's the first person's reacting to this? It's we see Carlos looking. Now let's get Carlos' fear. So the focus is like, let's pull Carlos, flesh him out as much as possible, how he's handling this as a driver, and try to keep calm and cool. And then for me, oddly enough, I went to Kunle last because he's the most crucial one and critical, emotional one. So I got the other characters' emotion first. Maddie's fear. What's Maddie thinking? What's going through her head as she's observing this situation? You know, Alice trying to calm Maddie, and Alice is also slightly freaking out. And then Raphael, kind of more of the observer, just trying to really stay calm. And then once we got that, really honing on Kunle in every moment as much as possible. When we cut to Kunle doing his CPR and seeing his expression in his faces, and I'm so glad Carey shot so many slow motion moments of that. We had to trim that out too, but we had so many great other dailies of it, but we had enough slow motion shots where, and that's the thing that Carey has in the vision, when he picks moments where to shoot these scenes over cranked at the right moment emotionally. It's not just for a beautiful shot and stuff like that, because all those shots are beautiful when it's in slow-mo, but it's the height of the moment with collision thing. And so the chase, initially, you know, got the chase down, and it's a lot of versions that we went through, and more so like the whole experience has been emotional. So let's just not make this just a chase scene, you know. It could be just a chase scene to get to the hospital, and then we go back to the emotion. There's a moment in that chase scene where we slow down from all the chaos, and we have Kunle doing CPR and we focus close on Emma, her face, and it looks like she's like really going to be gone. And then we focus on Maddie and Kunle making quick eye contact. That moment was actually at the hospital. It was filmed at the hospital after they, stationed there while the police is telling them to get out. And Carey had a great idea. One day said, hey man, like, can we add more emotion to this? What about moving that scene at the hospital during the chase and make it just give us a moment there of emotion so that we can be more invested to set that up where it pays off even more when he sees a gun. So yeah, it was a lot of, that's what we did a lot in this movie. We took a lot of scenes or clips and move it up or back and just make it more emotional. So I think that's one of the things that once we hit that emotional part of the chase, we know we got that right. So it was definitely a long process with that whole chase scene because it's an action sequence. Also, adding a comedic moment where, Alex is hitting the back of the van, like, help, and it looks, different from a police perspective, but it's also from an audience perspective because we know what's going on. But yeah, it's more of an emotional scene where, for me, it's just focused on each character, and then Kunle was the biggest one where since that's the heaviest one, was focused on him last, and then Kunle and Maddie in the emotional chase to break away from the chaos was the last thing in the edit that we had to move and make it work.
Well, and I really appreciate that there was the stakes weren't just a car chase. Like it was, we need to get to the hospital. That's why we're not stopping.
Yeah.
Like there's this whole, like if I look at other films, it tends to be like, it's a car chase. They're shooting at her, like whatever. So in one of the things, whenever I talk to editors about chase sequences, they talk about geography and keeping people oriented. So was there any trouble with keeping people oriented in where they were and the distance and everything like that?
There was. There was like because they had to go through these suburbs, through these roads, and how do we get out to the street, to the hospital? There was definitely that. I remember at first we were struggling with the geography just because so much was happening. But then I think once we were able to hone in on it, let's just focus on the character's perspective and experience what they're experiencing. And then once we jump out, we just pick moments of where they're kind of like going through the city and stuff. And once we jump out, I think as an audience, you kind of get it. You just piece those moments in their heads. And then once we get to the hospital, you don't question it anymore.
We spent so much thought into like trying to like make sure transitionally we were tracking, getting from the woods into this industrial area, into near the hospital, into the hospital, like tracking all that. And it's like, who gives a shit? Like what people really care about is like what's going on in that van. Like how are they dealing with this and that emotional like impact of this. And then like Lam said, pop out, oh, they're on this street. They just blew a stop sign. Okay, back into the van. Like, oh, there's a turn. They turned somewhere. We know where they're going. So I think, the natural inclination is to like make everything make sense, track it all, right? And then you get into it and you're like, doesn't matter. No one really cares about that. And there's a lot of stuff that like, I was sweating, like even at the party earlier where it's like geography wise, like they're going to put the girl over there, like everybody's going to see him, like no one's going to buy this. I was like losing my mind over it. And then no one cares. No one cares about that there because they're invested in these guys. They're enjoying, they're in the story. They don't care about the geography. So that's a discovery that I had on this film in a big way is that, it's not, if you have a great emotional impact, you can get away with some things that just, because this is not a big budget movie. We didn't have a lot of time and money to do, multiple streets and like all this stuff. It was like, we had one night to shoot that chase. And like, I think we shot most of that on one strip of street.
Yeah.
So we were literally like, reversing shots. And I don't think we reversed shots, flopping shots, whatever we did. Like, Lam, you did your thing, like, like speeding things up to make it look like, different stuff. But the emotion like gets you through all that, and it doesn't really matter. So that was a good discovery.
Well, it's interesting because Lam, you keep talking about, oh yeah, and then we have these slow shots here, and I'm like, I rewatched that scene this morning. I don't remember any of that because I was again invested in the characters, right? So I'm like, yeah, slow shots, yeah.
Yeah. I guess if you're into it, yeah. For me, I just remember obviously those moments, but yeah, I think for me that sucked that scene because it had so much going on. But for me, it was great to have this challenge of experiencing this chaos and how to get away emotionally and still feel the chaos. That was a great thing when we finally got that down right. And then also the hospital scene when he sees the gun, that gets me every time. And and that was a fun process with sound design. Our sound mixer, had this idea of stripping all these exterior moments away and just focus on Kunle and just be in this ringing moment. That was like freaking when he did that sound, that worked with our shots that we put together. So
Now, I have one last question for you guys. Now, it's sort of a fun question to sort of wrap up everything because we have had a lot of serious talk here. What would you say is your favorite guilty pleasure film to watch or guilty pleasure show to watch?
Ooh, man, that's so hard.
The toughest question. That's my gotcha question. That's my gotcha question.
Yeah. That's Carey, you go first.
I have a few, man. I'm a sucker for fashion shows like Project Runway and that kind of stuff, making the cut and all those things where it's like people are putting, I don't know. I love watching that with my girl. Like I watch that all day. You got one, Lam?
Man, for me, it's like sitcoms like Friends or The Office and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I could totally just watch any of those episodes anytime, just to kind of like break away from reality in a way. But yeah, I can't pinpoint exactly like favorite movie or anything like that. Just so many good ones.
Guilty pleasure, like where like a lot of people are like don't like it, but you love it. Type of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty loose with that I usually accept.
What's yours?
I love The Room. If you've ever seen The Room, it's
terrible. I went to the theater and saw that.
That's great.
That was a great experience in the theater. Did you see it in the theater or did you see it?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
It's the only way to see it.
It really is. It really is. Have you seen that, Lam?
Yeah, I have. That one's a good one to choose.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't think of one. I want to give an answer though.
Yeah, no, it's not a problem. We can accept The Office. That's not a problem.
Hey man, if I can throw out Project Runway, I think you're good with The Office.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, thank you guys so much for letting me interview you today.
Thanks for having me.
Nice to talk to you, man. Thanks for
having a good one, guys.
You too.
Bye.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Sight, Sound, and Story Live, making it work from editor to director. December 19th at 8 p.m., we're going to talk with the sound team from Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. It's one of my favorite films of the year with my ultimate all-time favorite Randy Newman cameo. Thanks again, as always, to sponsors OWC, AJA, ACE, Filmmaker U, and of course, Janet Dalton and Jason Banke from Manhattan Edit Workshop. Have a great night, everybody, and thanks again for watching.